the Coast Salish peoples, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam First Nations. We respect the land and honor this tradition of land acknowledgement that dates back centuries for Indigenous peoples. With this acknowledgement, we thank those Indigenous people who still live on and care for these lands. From Toronto, we would also like to take the time to acknowledge the land we gather on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We encourage you to reflect on the history, treaties, and traditional keepers of the land we inhabit. So, have you ever wondered what production studios actually look for in portfolios? Today, you are going to find out that and so much more as our esteemed Nelvana panelists share everything you need to know in order to give your career a head spark. I'd like to now welcome our panelists. Please turn your cameras and microphones on. Hello. So let's start with introductions. Please introduce yourself and how you are currently involved in the animation industry. Let's start with Judy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Judy. I'm the manager of studio operation at Nelvana. I'm doing recruiting for the studios, overseeing 2D and 3D production, studio planning, and carry out the studio policy, et cetera, et cetera. So everything we involve the studio thing, I will have a hands-on.
Thank you, Judy. Vanessa.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Esteves. I am a supervising creative producer at Nelvana, which means I have creative oversight over a portfolio of shows in development and current series. I'm also a writer and co-creator and co-showrunner for a series that's currently in production with Red Knot.
And Adrian?
Hi, my name is Adrian Thatcher. I am a director at Nelvana. I've been with Nelvana for a little over 20 years now. Yeah, I direct series. So I think some of the more recent ones are Ranger Rob and Oh No, It's an Alien Invasion, Bravest Warriors. So yeah.
Cool. And finally, Daniel.
Hi, my name is Daniel Clermont. I'm a animation supervisor at Nelvana. So I basically run the animation team for different productions. So I would get instructions from Adrian on how animation should look, and I organize the episodes for the animators to work on.
Great. So jumping right in, we'll start in the same order again. And can each of you tell us how you got started with your career in animation and what were your experiences like getting into the animation industry? Again, we'll start with Judy.
Well, it's been over 30 years I started animations. I graduated at a commercial arts school. And by then I was in Hong Kong. So there's no big animation studio in Hong Kong. So I joined as a animation commercial studio. I was so lucky that I get interviewed by the directors, look at my portfolios, and we don't have an animation school in Hong Kong by that time. So they happy to take me on and train me. So while I'm working, I was getting training to do animation. So that's how I got into the animation industry. And then slowly I moved into doing producing. And then when I moved to Canada, I started all over again. And I'm lucky to get to Nelvana to work. So I'm started as a design coordinator, and then I work on my way up. Now I'm the studio operation managers.
Thank you, Judy. Let's go on to Vanessa.
Hello. I actually didn't go to animation school. I went to film school to be a writer and director, and I worked in live action for a little bit, and then I kind of fell into animation by chance and never looked back. I started as a design coordinator and then moved through production coordinator and line producing, and then kind of found my footing in the creative side of things. And I moved down that pathway. So that was my journey.
Thanks, Vanessa. And Adrian.
My journey into animation was a little strange. Well, I thought it was. I started off out of high school as a graphic design, advertising, that sort of thing. My mom had always wanted me to be a commercial artist, so do ads and that sort of thing. And so I kind of followed her guidance because she's an artist as well. And I actually went into school before animation for illustration, and then kind of discovered that, hey, there's this thing called animation going on. I had no idea. Had no idea how animation worked. I think, I did what all the little kids did. I'd made my flip books when I was a kid and that sort of thing, but that was kind of the extent of it. So when I actually got into Sheridan Animation, I remember my first day, and it was, the teacher said, pull out your field guides. And I was like looking around. Everybody else knew what they were, and I had no clue. So I had to quickly learn all the terminology. So that was my intro into animation. But to get into the industry itself, I actually, our class did a trip to the Ottawa Animation Festival, and I think, one of two students in the second year class that actually brought along a portfolio to show. I thought that's what we were supposed to do, so I did that, and actually ended up meeting a producer from Walt Disney Animation Canada at the time. The studio was just opening up in Toronto. I think there was one out in Vancouver as well, and showed my throwaway portfolio on an 8.5 by 11 piece of, stack of paper, and then gave them a call for a summer job, and ended up with a summer job in Toronto, and that's kind of the start of it all. That.
Nice. Thank you, Adrian. And finally, Daniel.
I guess it's maybe a bit kind of like Adrian's story. I was in high school and I didn't really quite know what to do, but I really loved to draw. And my parents were always encouraging me to find something to do that I liked. And one of the guidance counselors at my high school said, "Oh, I know someone at a local college." It was at Algonquin College. I'm from Ottawa. And I met Jerry Paquette there. He was coordinator at the time. And he gave me a lot of good information on how to get started. So I worked on my portfolio, applied for Sheridan, applied for Algonquin. Did not get in. So I went to night school. I worked full time, went to night school to learn, to develop my skill. And then I tried again the following year, and then I got in. I got in at Sheridan. And I guess from there, I studied at Sheridan, graduated. And getting into the industry at that time when we graduated was kind of tough. There wasn't a lot of work going around. So I did some illustration for a bit. I did a little bit of 3D. And then finally, I was able to break into the 2D animation. And I guess it's been kind of the path since then. Haven't looked back.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Judy, let's start with you. When looking at applications, what do you think Canadian studios are looking for these days?
Well, the same thing. We always say that we look for potential. Like, doesn't matter you have right now at this time, like doesn't matter you have experience or not, but we want to see whether you can do different styles, because if you're only stuck with one style, it's so hard for us to place you in different productions. And do you have experience and knowledge for the software that we're using? So for me, that is what I will look for, the resume and the portfolio first, and then I will pass it on to the director and the supervisors to look at more detailed things.
Daniel and Adrian, do you have anything?
Daniel can add more, like what they were looking at on their area.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, go ahead, Andrew. Sorry.
No, I was going to jump in and talk about. There's one thing that I always look for when I see a portfolio come across the desk is perspective skills, and perspective skills and classical drawing ability. That's an obvious one, but when I talk about perspective, a lot of people instantly think, well, you're talking about location design or layout, buildings, those sorts of things. But you'd be surprised at how much perspective affects even character designs, prop designs, those smaller things that when you really hone, and perspective is kind of some people look at it as more of almost like the math of art. It's a little more boring, but once you have that foundation and an understanding of perspective, it definitely elevates an artist when I could look at something and see that they understand that if a character is way at the back of the room and the horizon line's through their eye, when the character's right up at the camera, the horizon line should still be through their eyes. Like that shouldn't change. And you'd be surprised, it's such a small thing that gets missed, but when it's there, it definitely elevates an artist. So that's one of the major things that I look for.
Daniel?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, we work well, specifically, I guess we're in 2D animation. We want to represent 3D shapes in 3D or in 2D. So that perspective is very important. And you can tell when you're looking at someone's art, if they get it or if they need to work on it. So that's very important. And we can see it too when we're looking at animation reels, because the movement is also happening in 3D space, but it's on a flat medium. And we look for, like Judy said earlier, the software knowledge is a big bonus. That's really an easy way to break in. And we look for talent. We want to see if people understand the principles of animation, how the movement works, the timing, if it's appealing, their skill. And that usually moves us to the next stage, which is, depending on what we see, we send a test or we'll reach out right away for an interview.
Great. Vanessa, let's start with you on this question. Getting into animation production, of course, can be a daunting task. What do you feel some of the skills, experiences, and qualities that you think make a great candidate for this type of work for animation?
That's a good question. It obviously depends on what area of animation you're looking to get into. A role in production, like a coordinator, a PM, producer, requires lots of multitasking. That's obviously a big one. So when we look for a candidate for that team, we're not necessarily looking for animation experience yet. Obviously it's helpful, but you need to get that somewhere. So usually we look for past experiences that just show an ability to multitask, exercise time management. People skills are huge. Our productions can be massive. And this is true of any role in production. We look for people who are friendly and, willingness to work with a large group of people, because the teams are huge. We also look for people who are passionate about storytelling, which seems like a given, but specifically towards children's storytelling, because that's what we primarily do at Nelvana. And it's great when we meet people who are knowledgeable about the industry, not just the technology changes, but also what's hitting with the kids. What are the kids watching out there? So that's one of the things we look for as well.
Judy, did you want to add anything?
No, basically, like Vanessa covered everything, and teamwork is really, really a big thing, because again, like what Vanessa said, like, are you willing or passionate to work with a whole group of people? And not that you just like for the skill, but how you like using what you already know, or when we use the software, let's say 2D for Harmony, how you can like move it to the next step or improve it, like, because like we are like the same company as Toon Boom. So then while we working on the production, we are kind of see what can we do to tell them to develop the better for the software. So someone like, even though new, just come out of school, when they started in production, they may have some good idea. We're looking for someone who can give us some new like idea or like new things to improve.
Great. Adrian, so your journey as a director that you talked about, for a student or someone looking to transition in the industry, what would be the best advice for someone who might want to get a head start to becoming a director or an animation director?
I think that the possibility of coming out of school and becoming a director right away it's possible, but unlikely. I think the best advice would be, and I think I kind of stumbled into this because of the lack of short attention span. I just naturally had a desire to learn all the aspects of production. I wanted to do props, and then location design, and then some character design, and then try some background painting, and that led to going into art direction, which led to directing. So I don't think I consciously thought about it at the time, but I think I just haphazardly stumbled onto something in that it's a great idea to learn all the aspects of production, you know, to some level or another. You know, obviously you're not going to become a jack of all trades, but to have some knowledge, to be able to speak to other aspects of production. My time as an art director, you know, I never expected to be an art director. I didn't, it was just, again, it was something else I just wanted to learn. But now it's so valuable because in working with our art director on our show now, I could grab a painting. I could say, hey, like, you know, I could communicate visually. I could effectively communicate verbally as well, you know, some of the terminology, that sort of thing. So yeah, learn as much as you can about all the aspects of production, not just, hey, I want to tell other people what to do. Because there are, you know, I think that's kind of the vision of directing, is you get to be in charge. Well, it's not about that. It's about working with everybody that's on the team and communicating with them collaboratively. You know, for me, when I moved into directing from all those other stages, I was fortunate enough I didn't have to convince this person. I worked on a show called Willa's Wildlife with Gary Hurst. He was the director. And thankfully, you know, I suppose I could have asked and pushed, but he kind of gave me a little bit of freedom to kind of cut my teeth on the editing of animatics, Leicas. And that it was at that point when I kind of knew that, hey, this is fun. This is creating the story from the storyboards. And you know, that was kind of my first kind of big green flag of, hey, I want to do this directing thing. So learn all the aspects would be the big advice.
Great. And for you, Daniel, when you talk about animation directing, and where someone just gets out of school and they want, that's their aspirations to become an animation director, what's their career path, or what are some of the tips and tricks that you think someone could follow to get to that?
Well, they definitely need experience. I mean, it's kind of a leadership role, so you have to kind of learn as you go. I mean, some individuals might be more apt to that position more quickly than some others. But I can speak for myself, where being an animator for a good number of years, I really got to see what worked and what didn't. As I had my hands, I'm on the ground floor, I have my hands in the scene, and I can see what's working, what's not working. This rig is working, this scene is not working, and so on. And then find solutions, like problem solve. You know, work with your lead, your animation lead, your animation supervisor, the rigging team, and suggest some ideas. You know, this could work better if it was like this. Experiment. You got to learn on your own time sometimes too. I remember trying to make a particular character do something, and the rig just wasn't working. So I would rejig it. I know I would work on it in the node view and try to get something to work. And sometimes you make it more efficient. You know, instead of redrawing this all the time, now it's doing it automatically. And then you can bring that experience as an animation supervisor, because your team is going to run into those problems. The juniors are going to run into those problems. Everything you ran into, they're going to run into. And when they come to you for help or a problem or an issue, you're right there and you can help them out. And that's I guess a good chunk of it too. It's a lot of problem solving, because they're gonna, and even then some there's storytelling issues that happen sometimes. Like, this hookup is not working. The storyboard says this, but my character can only do that, or the props look this way. So we can troubleshoot together. We can communicate with the director, the prop artist, the rigger, and try to solve it. So I mean, it's like I said, some people might be more apt to get there quickly. You need the people skills too, because you're working with like the animation teams are some of the biggest on the production. I think on the last show we were on, there was at one point, I think we had 28 animators that we had to work with. And I found one thing that's very important is to know your animators. It's not everyone that can animate a dancing sequence or a character doing a certain move, or like if you need a certain performance, you know, you have the animators that can handle that. So you assign the scenes to the people that can deliver some quality work. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Vanessa. I know this because I know you're in a creative lead in a development role. What do you look for when you're working with content creators? And I know this is a new question, but when you're looking for people, or someone has an idea, whether they're in Nelvana or not, what do you look for, and how do you work with those kinds of people?
Well, we're obviously always looking for an amazing idea. Like if they're coming to us, usually it's because they're pitching a specific property. So looking for something that stands out, that's just going to grab us immediately. But then beyond that, looking for how we want to work with them. Like, do they have a track record? If it's a content creator that's coming to us, like in the position of wanting to jump onto an idea that we already have, then we would look at, what have you done before? Are you the right fit for this project? Or if they're bringing us their own idea, it's the idea that will stand out. And we group our ideas. Obviously, Nelvana does the 2 to 5 preschool, the 4 to 7 that we call bridge. Then there's the 6 to 11 and the 8 to 12. So we're also kind of asking ourselves, is this property 2 to 5 or 4 to 7, which is our bread and butter? We do most of our work in those 2 areas. Or is it feeling like a 6 to 11 or an 8 to 12? And do we need that in our slate right now? So there's a few things that we think of when we meet people, but at the end of the day, it's the idea. If it kind of is something we think will capture the imagination of our core audience on our networks, and if we just think it's an idea we believe in.
Great. Let me ask you, because animation's changed a lot. I know we've touched on it a little bit. How has it changed from when you started? Let's start again with you, Judy. How's animation, the process and where things are at, changed from when you started till now?
Well, it's a big change. When I started, it's all traditional hand drawing animation. We're still flipping the animation paper and stuff. And now it's all digital. And then it's like more different step right now for the animation process. And again, like right now, the industry is so busy. So like there's like more and more studio have more productions. And when I started, as what Daniel said, like when he graduated, it's so hard to find a job because it's not that many animation studio and production starting. So that is a big difference that when I start, like, you know, I'm not telling you how old I am because, like, you know, when it's hand drawing animation, we still send things overseas, send the animations to overseas to work on. And now we keep everything in Canada. So that is one big difference, right?
Daniel, how have you got some thoughts?
Yeah, that's digital. Judy's right about that one. That was a big change. When I was doing illustration, it was pencil on paper with then the cleanup ink that we would then scan. So it was a mix, I guess, of traditional and digital. And the internet now plays a giant role. Networking beforehand was so tough. You'd have to like go to these events. Like we would have to travel to Vancouver or travel to Toronto. To meet people and to network for work and to find leads, to find job leads. But now, you can put your portfolio online, your resumes online, you're communicating online. We work online. We're all working from home now, so that's a big bonus, I guess. But it's like instant communication, instant feedback. You know, if you're working on your art, your portfolio. You know, there's some folks out there will look at it and for you and give you some feedback right away. You don't have to mail it and wait. And that's a big change for the better, I think, anyway.
Adrian?
I feel fortunate enough that I did start with that kind of pencil to paper, you know, at Walt Disney Animation. I was on the layout crew and it was drawing. We had gigantic desks and we'd be drawing huge pans on 16 field paper. I guess somewhere on here. So that experience, I think, you know, is that value to bring forward into today's world is huge. And I would encourage anybody coming up through to still kind of hone those traditional drawing skills. I think that's you know, one of the things that we still like to see in a portfolio. But the industry itself, I think it's almost come 360 now. It's when I came out of school, unlike Daniel, you could not find a job. It was right at the boom of all the Disney features coming out, the direct-to-video sequels, and then we had our lull in the early 2000s. Things got pretty tight and tough, but I think we're back there now. I think we're back to, it's almost a renaissance of kind of the availability of jobs, which is fantastic. It's great to see so many opportunities for all the young people coming out of school.
Thank you. Vanessa?
Yeah, I echo what everyone else has said. I think the internet would be a big, I mean, my first job was to photocopy those boards. So technology is huge. We used to photocopy them, put them in a box and FedEx them to our studio in China. So we don't do that anymore. But the internet has been a big change because I find that the connectivity across the industry is huge now. But we don't have to go to Kidscreen or a market and sit with a studio from another country to see what they're doing. We can just go online and look, and that's great for us being able to know what's going on in the industry. It's inspirational to see what other studios, you know, the looks that they're coming up with. And I think it promotes a conversation and a dialogue across countries that we didn't previously have, or we got it very rarely, a couple times a year. So that's the internet is a huge one. Big difference since when I started.
Cool. Judy, what's the biggest and best piece of advice someone gave you in the industry?
Always learning, always learning the new technologies, or like networking as well. Like you always have to go and reach out to people, talk to people. That is one big thing. Like what my position right now, is good for me. And again, learning, even though I'm in this industry more than 30 years, every day I'm learning new things. So because every production is different, even though in the same studio, right?
Great. Daniel, what about you? What's the best piece of advice you've received in your career?
Pretty much work hard. If you really want it, you got to work for it. You get out of it what you put into it. And I guess I'm drawing back to the experience I had when I failed to get in the animation schools when I first started. It wasn't discouraging. It was discouraging, but it was kind of it was motivating at the same time. And you get that hunger to learn and to improve, and that serves you well throughout your career. So that was from my parents. That was a good piece of advice.
Nice.
Works in all its aspects.
Nice. Vanessa, what about you? What was the best piece of advice you received?
The best piece of advice I received was to know your audience. So when it comes to making our own projects and the passion projects, you follow your heart. But when you're working in a studio setting, you really need to know your audience. And if you don't know them, get to know them. And I have used that piece of advice. Adrian's sick of hearing it, but on so many people, that it's so important. If we're not making content for the kids who are going to be watching it, if we're making content for ourselves, then we run the risk of missing the mark and overshooting the demographic. So if you don't have kids in your life, just go to the kids section of Netflix and see what they're watching, because that's really going to help you get ahead if you want to work in children's animation.
Great. And Adrian?
Fake it till you make it. No, I'm kidding. But there is something in that, and it's tied into what Daniel was saying, and it's that you're not supposed to know everything. Like if you're a student coming into the industry, don't be afraid that you don't. Like I didn't know what a field guide was back in the day. Like there's a learning process that needs to happen, and not to be discouraged. And Daniel's talking about failures. I failed animation. I failed first year animation. I thought I was going to get kicked out of school. And fortunately, there was one of the professors that said, "No, let's let this kid through. He kind of shows some potential." So failures, yeah, definitely can. You could, if you're a person who could turn a failure into something that's going to make you stronger, you'll be better off for it all the way through.
Great.
And I want to add is don't afraid to ask questions. Sometimes students or whoever have even your experience, sometimes they feel worry if they ask too many questions that will show them I cannot handle the job. No, always ask question but ask the smart and good questions.
Yeah, that's a very good note. Let me ask each of you, and I'll start with Daniel this time. What is the one thing you see in portfolios or reels that you wish would go away, that it just please, you know, and what do you look for in a portfolio and a reel? And I'll go around and ask you.
Yeah, I mean, we've been looking at reels frequently now. Judy's right, and Adrian's right, there's kind of a renaissance going on. So we've seen a lot of reels. And I guess maybe some folks are probably sending in reels maybe a little too soon, like they need to develop their skills maybe a little bit more. One thing I see often is we use digital tools now, so we can see everything online, and most folks are working with Harmony, and they tend to let the software maybe do too much of the work. So they have to make, it's like a new type of pencil and paper you're using. You have to control it. I see like characters kind of floating across the screen, or they're weightless. Those are the things that are right away, like this person maybe needs a little more time to develop. And sometimes I just want to reach through the screen and show them, like, this is how you do it. Don't do it this way, because those are the same mistakes I've done. So that, I guess it's not so frustrating to have to see it. I guess it's more, you know, I wish I could help some people, and you know, sometimes they just need a little word to get that light bulb to go off, and they'll get it.
Cool. Judy, what about you? I'm sure you look at so many and for varied positions. What are the you know, some of the key things that you would rather not see in a portfolio, or possibly you would like to see more of?
Well, sometimes when I receive a portfolio and I see, like, if the person is applying for like a design, but I didn't see any design work in the portfolio, or they are applying for 2D, but it's only show me some painting. So that is, we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it. And then I will not forward it to the directors and supervisors to look at. So what we like, as what Daniel said, like, we want to see some solid place. Like if you are focusing, want to be a 2D animators, I want to see like you have some 2D animation reel, even though it's not like completely like finished, but have some potential. As what Adrian said, drawing skill that we want to look in your portfolio.
Great. Adrian?
I love to see some signs that the artist is thinking in a portfolio. And what I mean by that is a character design or a location design, to see some draw throughs, to see some rough lines in behind. Not everything needs to be crisp and perfect when it comes to traditional drawing skills. And yeah, Judy's brings up a great point. You know, if you're applying to be a location designer, a handful of character designs are much help to us. And then one thing that I'd love to see a lot more of in portfolios is location design. Location layout is I think I've seen a little resurgence in it in some of the portfolios from the last couple of years, but there definitely is a need for it in the industry. It's an area that we're always kind of on the hunt for the kind of a good location designer layout person. So I'd love to see more locations, layouts, that type of thing in a portfolio.
Great. Vanessa, do you have any additional thoughts?
Well, I don't look at portfolios usually. I lean on my supervisors and directors for that, but I could add to this that if anyone is wanting to pitch ideas, because I do see a lot of pitches, I take a lot of pitches and read them, I would say look at the networks. Come prepared knowing what it is Nelvana likes. So sometimes we see pitches that aren't exactly something that we do. So if it wouldn't go on Treehouse or YTV, then I would say ask yourself if you're in the right age demographic before coming to the pitch, because it's difficult when you get a pitch and someone can't answer what their age demographic is, or they have overshot it and it's for much older kids. And just kind of, again, going back to know your audience. If you're pitching content, because we love when people pitch content, please pitch. Just understanding what that age demographic likes and what is, what they're going to have a frame of reference for, and making sure that it's in the right zone for Treehouse or YTV. Those are always good gauges.
Great. Judy, let me ask you this. I've applied to Nelvana and I haven't heard back, or I really want to work at Nelvana. How do I continue that relationship, or how do I make a relationship that makes sense where I can find a way in, or how do I navigate that?
Well, I have a lot of people emailing me, sending me resume portfolio. And even though some people couldn't make it, I will always ask them to please keep in touch with me. I like people like every month, every 3 months, file me an email, then we keep in touch. And when you have a new update portfolio, keep sending it to me. And one day it may work out, right? And again, like when we look at portfolio, we see that potential, we send tests to people. So that's one thing that I'm networking with me, and I'm networking with people that will keep a lot of people, like one day you will have a foot in the Nelvana studio. Like we see how you, like, have you improved when you send us another update portfolio? Yeah.
Yeah, when Judy
Great.
sends us a portfolio to review, after she's assessed it, we'll always send feedback back to her. So
Yeah.
then she'll send feedback to the artist. If you take that feedback and improve on it, improve on your portfolio, take the advice, then that's what keeps the wheel going.
Great. I have a question here, and it's probably more for yourself, Vanessa, and I know it's always difficult to talk about things like this, about development and what's in development. And someone is asking about Corn and Peg. Will there be a Corn and Peg feature film? I believe that was the question.
Oh, I genuinely don't know. I haven't heard of that. I would say I don't know.
I
I'm sorry.
apologize. That's not, yeah, no. I'm reading the question
I don't
again.
know.
So, and it was just, or 16 are some of the company's popular shows that are what are some of the upcoming shows that are in development in the near future?
Oh, wow. I actually don't know if I'm allowed to, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them. We have some great stuff though. Oh, you've stumped me there. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm allowed to share. I might get in trouble. So I can say there's some good stuff. We have a huge development slate right now. I know that there's lots of stuff spanning that 2 to 5, 4 to 7, 6 to 11, 8 to 12. We've got the Hardy Boys, which is live action that's out there. Everyone knows it was nominated for an Emmy. So Nelvana is starting to work in live action. I feel like I'm allowed to say Nelvana is dabbling in features right now. I'm also working on just testing the waters for features. We're writing a script at the moment for one of our bigger properties. So we're doing a lot of things in all sorts of different areas. Digital, we're getting into digital. We did a series of digital music videos for kids. So it's not just our 2D, 3D anymore. There's tons of stuff going on.
It's great. It's exciting. So everybody will have to just keep hanging on.
Sit tight.
Keep watching. All right, so this is a question from someone in the audience. With so many young animators and talent starting their careers at Nelvana has gained a reputation for having a lot of top talent who have gone on to do amazing things. With so many amazing alumni, including yourselves, who were some talent partners you loved working with while working at Nelvana? Let's start with you, Daniel.
Oh, wow. Who have I worked at in the past that's moved on to greater things? There's a lot of colleagues that I've worked with. I guess if I name them, folks might not recognize them, but they've gone on to do some great things. They're still in the industry, and it's really admirable to see the work that they're doing. There are folks that have come from other big studios to Nelvana that we're working with right now that are super talented, and we're so fortunate to have them. We have, I guess on Super Wish, our assistant director, our head designer. These guys are just unbelievable talent. So we're really fortunate to have that at Nelvana. Yeah.
Great. Judy?
Wow, I have to be careful. But, like
Yes.
almost most of the talent or the people that at Nelvana, I like kind of hire them. So everyone there, I love to work with. And, even though here, Daniel is the one very talented, I love to work with him. He always like give good supports for me when looking at portfolio and interviewing people. And when I ask for extra help, Adrian is one of them, like very creative director. We have so many amazing director like Mike Fallows, Jason Grove, and like almost everybody I work with, because I love to work with. They're so talented. And Vanessa too, so creative. So
Awesome. Adrian, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll add to that. I think that one of the things that we were always told when we were at Sheridan is that at some point or another, you would have some sort of connection or brush with Nelvana in your career. So I think there's so many people in the industry that have worked with Nelvana or done freelance for Nelvana. So yeah, there's tons of names. A couple that I just jotted down a couple, but I know Chris Pern, he directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. You know, he's come back to Nelvana, and you know, he's done freelance for Nelvana. He's helped train some storyboard artists at Nelvana. Charlie Bonifacio, if you're in, you know, everybody knows Charlie, and you know, he's kind of a, you know, Robin Budd from, you know, Robin Budd goes all the way back to Rock and Rule at Nelvana, and then he ended up being my director on Return to Neverland at Disney. So we've worked together in a few places, and then we both ended up back at Nelvana. And yeah, just tons of talent that have either been at Nelvana for a long stint or had a brush with Nelvana. So go Nelvana.
And just going back to all the exciting things that you guys are doing, Vanessa, I'm supposed to let the audience know, for anyone interested in following all of these things and keeping up with Nelvana, definitely follow them on social media and nelvana.com for sure. So let me ask you this. Give me a life in the day of. I always find that interesting. Pick a day, a Tuesday, a Friday, a Monday. What's a day in the life of each of your positions? Let's start with Vanessa, just so everybody can get a really good sense. It's easy to say, I want to be an animation director, I want to be this or that. It's getting a really good broad scope of what that position is in a day. So if you could give us some highlights.
Sure. Yeah. I do a few different things in my role. So I have to kind of split my week up, and my days can always change if I'm working on something in development. And it depends on where we are in production with the different shows. But right now, Super Wish happens to be quite busy. So a day in my life is usually very Super Wish heavy. And it's a lot of this on Zoom with Adrian, talking things through, because obviously we're all at home now. And Adrian and I connect on everything creative wise. So a day can include many different things. You know, we could be reviewing a script, then having a call with our story editor, then we move on to looking at a Leica. We might be back on Zoom talking to each other about that. We have production meetings where we get the whole team on Zoom. Sometimes we're in a record, so we are doing records on Zoom, and that is a whole different experience, because then we have us and our voice director in the studio and the actors. And those are pretty time consuming. Everybody's at their home. And then we also are watching animatics, lots and lots of Zoom calls with the producer and the different leads. And then quiet time. I mean, there's that, well, you have to sit down and read a script, not quiet time, like relaxing, but like sitting down, just shutting off your Zoom and reading a script, because that's where we're at in production. We're still writing, and it's very important to go through those scripts and make detailed notes. So it's really a lot of this, but going through every different stage of production. Luckily, we haven't hit animation yet. So soon though, right, Daniel? And that'll be another layer of complexity and connection and communication. But that's sort of a day in my life. It's not really, and then I also have kids and a dog. So it's kind of chaotic working from home, but we're all managing. But yeah, that's it. Every day is a little bit different. Every day is creative from start to finish, which I absolutely love. So I'm very lucky.
Great. Daniel, what's a day in the life of an animation director?
Well, at first I start off with a coffee. I got to get that in my system. We check emails. A lot of it has to do with organization and communication for animation supervisor. So there's something maybe that I have to follow up on, but I do that as well. And then at the beginning of the week, so if we're going to go through a Monday, let's say, there's a launch meeting. So every team, there's 4 teams, every team's got a launch meeting every Monday. So I get all my my things in order. I've done that the week before, so that when we meet on a Monday morning, kind of like this, and we share the screen to show the Leica reel, everyone's got their questions, and we go through the board, and I point out things that to look for. Things I don't have the answer to, I will email Adrian about, so we can get that stuff sorted out. And then we just follow up with everyone with whatever problems they're going to run into, and it happens. There's always a little something that needs some fixing or some sorting out, or a question that needs answered. Something's not clear. It's technical or it's creative. It's a story. It's always a little something. So that's where the experience comes into play to help out. And then reviewing work, reviewing animation, reviewing retakes, and then offering some feedback on that. Does that look like that line is doing what it should do? You got to line it up sometimes, or the character should be turning left, not right. So just some back and forth with the team. And then at the end of the day, just get ready for the next day. Check my schedule, make sure I've got all the things that I've had planned for the day are done and what can be moved to the next day.
Do you get to animate?
I kind of miss it. Sometimes I'll save a little something for myself if I have time, but usually there's very little time to animate. If I do that, it'll have to be after my regular workday.
Okay, thank you. And Adrian, what about you? What are your days like?
I roll out of bed about 1 o'clock. No, I make my lists in the morning. So I just grab my book here, and I kind of jot down everything that I need to do for the day. And you can see that some stuff's not crossed off, and that was like a few days ago, because you could never get to everything. It's kind of directing's a lot of kind of oversight on all aspects of production. Vanessa said, it starts with a premise for a script, review that, make some notes, and it's outline, review it, make some notes, first draft, second draft, third draft, polish, and then you're handing that to a board artist, and then when the board artist is done drawing that, you're reviewing that. It's a lot of review stuff, but I'll kind of I'm going to cite some of my favorite days for me is being in the editing suite and cutting to when a storyboard comes in, and it's like a clean slate, and we could now form that storyboard into a great story and add some jokes and have a great, if this was back in pre-COVID times, I like to spend a lot of time in the editing suite where we bounce ideas off each other and say, I always try to take in everybody on the cruise, all their input and ideas, because I think that makes, that engages them. So that's something I'm always kind of saying, what do you think about this? What's your thoughts here? And then as a director, you kind of take all that information and formulate it into the best decision, or maybe you've heard something that you've never thought of before, which happens a lot, which is great. So yeah, forming the show in, and that takes, that's a few days during the week. I'm spending a lot of time in the editing suite. And then out of that, while all the other review stuff's going on, then depending on the point in production, I might jump into post audio and review sound and score and sound effects. And yeah, it's a lot of review. But to jump on the question that you asked, Daniel, does he get to animate? I still like to set aside some time to get my hands dirty. I will always try to design a character for a series that I'm working on. It doesn't matter at what level. It doesn't have to be a main character. Just be something. I want to design something still. I want to storyboard a little portion. I often, it's just by happenstance, I'll often storyboard the opening for a lot of the shows that I direct. I like to pull that over for myself so that, I still have that creative juices flowing for that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's it's a busy day, and then I go to bed at 1 a.m. That's what I meant. Yeah, that was it.
Just as you wake up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Judy, what are your days?
well, my days, almost every day is like packed, but the first thing in the morning, I will like prioritize, like go through, like most of my time is going through all the emails and see like any problems on any productions need me to help to solve, to look for people and crewing up people. And I was on so many different management committees. So then I have goals to meet, like a task that I need to do. So basically when I start at 9 o'clock, I would constantly sit in front of my computer until like 6 or 7. And I have to make myself 7 o'clock, that's it. And then I just have to feed my cats. I have 3 cats. Otherwise now they are crying downstairs. And like look at a lot of like internet as well too. I have to go on LinkedIn to search for others. And then because we post a lot of job on a site, course site, then I have to, every day I have to find times to go through all the resumes and portfolio and then forward it to Daniel or other animation supervisors or design supervisors. And again, like all the producer will have like questions and want me to help to look for people. That is all my day, like packed like that, like Monday to Friday, nonstop. So that's my life. Not great as creative as the other, like Vanessa, Adrian, and Daniel. And a lot of more like management and networking works to do. So that's how my work days.
Judy's like a
Sounds pretty
linchpin.
creative to me.
She's like
Yeah.
a linchpin. She like keeps it all together. It's amazing.
Yeah. The most important job.
Yes. Let me reverse the table here. We have people applying to Nelvana. What's your pitch for people to go to Nelvana? Why should they want to work at Nelvana? What does Nelvana have to offer that you'd like to tell people? Daniel, what do you say?
The environment's great. The culture is great. The people we work with are fantastic. This is one of the things that I miss the most about when working from home at the studio. It's very inspiring. There's a lot of talent, and everyone's very open, I guess, open to help, open to questions. We try to encourage collaboration or encourage just learning from each other. And whenever I had a question about something I was doing, I did some 3D for a bit. I did some, and I remember I wanted to develop maybe more of my drawing skills. And we have such a wealth of talent. I would go see Brad, one of the most talented artists, and I'd be like, "Hey, Brad, I'm trying to draw like something. Like, what do you have for me?" And he'd give me some tips, and then I'd meet him in the elevator and be like, "Hey, how you doing? How's the drawing going?" So it's just like a great work environment. I mean, the studio also takes care of us. It's a really great place to work. I've worked at some smaller studios and some other studios, but Nelvana is just a good fit, and I really like it here.
Cool. Vanessa?
I would say it's a great place to work because we do everything. I've been at Nelvana for, I think, 14 years now, but you would never know I was at one company if you looked at my CV because I've been exposed to so many different things. We've done 2D, 3D, we work with toy companies, we work with many different networks. We do the little 2 to 5, we do our Max and Rubies straight up to the Hardy Boys, we do live action. There's so much to do that if you were on one project that you're not pigeonholed there forever. You could, if you did want to learn other skills or get exposure to other things, the ability to try new things and new partners and that sort of stuff, it's massive at Nelvana. We do a lot of different stuff.
Cool. Adrian?
Yeah, to what Vanessa said too, working with different partners. Like I said, I've been there for over 20 years, around 20 years now. And there's people that come onto our crews that have been there for equally as long. And I say, we've never worked together before. Like, it's amazing that the amount of people and the amount of cross-pollination between projects, the inspiration that comes from that many talented people in one place is mind-blowing. But for Nelvana, where we're located, we're right down on the water in Toronto, and what a beautiful setting, beautiful building. And yeah, the culture is fantastic. Everybody, when they find out what I do for a living, one of the main things that I like to say to them is that I don't feel like I've ever worked a day in my life. And I think that a big part of that is because I work at Nelvana. It's the culture of support, and yes, there are days that are stressful, but it's the way that we're able to make light of that stress there, and joke and have fun, and we have a very open floor plan at Nelvana, so there's no doors to knock on, so it's just swing over to somebody's desk, like Daniel said. It's if you don't know something about a hotkey on a program, you could find that information out on the spot very easily. So yeah, I think it's kind of all that culminates in just an amazing place to work. Yeah.
Can I add to that, Adrian? I should have said
No.
it.
Oh, yes.
Is that it's really important that we point out that Adrian and I are now co-creators of a series that Nelvana helped us get to where we are. And he didn't know what a field guide was, and I photocopied the storyboards. So Nelvana really does get behind their people and help them succeed and go to where they want to get to. So that's a really important one to mention as well.
That's awesome. And Judy, do you have a couple of brief notes to add?
Yeah, well, on top of all that, all they said is mostly why we want people to come to work with Nelvana. But we care for people and we help people to develop their skills as well. As what Vanessa said, if you want to, you are 2D animators, but if you want to develop your skills to, like, I want to be location layer artist, or I want to do background painting or art directions way, then we help people to develop the skills to move into that, what they want to be. And about, like, we encourage people, like, internally too, if they have great idea, if they want to pitch, just like Vanessa and Adrian, they pitched their idea, and now they are called, like, we're having the shows being produced right now. So that is, people will be happy to work in Nelvana. There's more opportunity.
That's great. Yes, that's great. We must be doing something right. It's 50 years, as we all know. So, and I also wanted to say, I wanted to get a shout out that if someone wants to pitch a story to Nelvana, feel free to email info@nelvana.com. And also Judy's email is judy.leung@nelvana.com. I lost it. Coruscant.com. So CRUSENT.com. So thank you so much. I'd like to thank Judy, Daniel, Adrian, Vanessa, and of course our audience and Spark CG Society. Nelvana is excited to be celebrating 50th anniversary, their 50th anniversary as a world leading producer, distributor, and licensor of children's animated and live action content this year. And there are lots of exciting plans. So again, check on the website and stay involved. And I'd like to just quickly thank our sponsors again. Terabyte sponsor Creative BC, supported by the government of BC. Metabyte sponsor AMPD, Animalogic, Capilano University, Netflix. Kilobyte sponsors Atomic Cartoons, Bardell Entertainment, Braun Media, Braun Foundry, Sony Picture Imageworks, Wildbrain Studios. Byte sponsors Arcana Center for Digital Media, COSA VFX, DGBC, Epic Games, LaSalle College Vancouver, Mainframe Studios, Knox VFX, Scanline VFX, Vancouver Film School, and our partners CMPA, BC Producers Branch, ACM SIGGRAPH, and Vancouver Short Film Festival. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you, everyone watching, and good luck in your careers. It's all. Go check out Nelvana and Vancouver. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.